everybody, and welcome to another episode of Queer Opera Conversations. This video series is dedicated to chatting with LGBTQIA artists and allies about making the world a better place through opera. My name is Chuck Dillard, founder and artistic director of Queer Opera, and I am thrilled to welcome three guests to the program today: Sam Peters, Helen Soultanian, and Maeve Stier. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. So I know you guys. I've worked with you for a few years now. These three singers are founding members of Queer Opera. These are some of my pioneers, and it's a real pleasure for them to be here with me today. But for my viewers, you may not know about these singers. So why don't we hear from you about what you've been up to, who you are, where you're from, all that good stuff. Sam, we'll start with you, and then we'll go on to Helen, and finally Maeve.
Hey, so my name is Sam Peters, and I grew up in Ralston, Nebraska, which is a suburb of Omaha. And that's where I actually am right now. My grandfather passed away last week, here with family. Feeling that energy, and I just turned 30 as of Sunday, so big time for me. I have a BA in music from Nebraska Wesleyan, and I'm currently working on my Master's of Science in Education at PSU. I use they them pronouns, and have only been out for about 4 years as queer, and that kind of dovetailed with my whole queer opera experience as well, so we'll talk about that, I'm sure. But yeah, I work at PSU in the School of Art and Design full-time, and I really love my job, and I'm missing it at the moment, being away from there and working remote.
Hi, I'm Helen Soultanian, and I use they them pronouns, and I am from Wichita, Kansas. It's not where I was born. Did a few stints like around the South, and then spent like a really long period of time in Wichita. But now I happily live in Portland, Oregon. I moved here to go to school at PSU, and now I am in my final term at PSU, which is very exciting. Doing it remotely, which has been really interesting. And yeah, I came out when I was 18, and then there's been like a series of like a bunch of more coming outs happening, as I'm sure a lot of people have experienced. And it's been interesting navigating that, navigating like my identity, navigating opera. So that really drew me to queer opera.
Great.
Hey there, my name is Maeve Stier. I am 20. I am finishing up my degree at PSU. I have lived in Portland for most of my life, and I love it here. It's a great place to be an artist. Right now I'm working part-time at a pet store and Mud Bay, and I am also a full-time student online, which proves its own special challenges for people who are disabled like me. So that has been really interesting to navigate that. But yeah, that's basically where I'm at. This is a great time to reassess priorities and sort of what our futures are going to look like as singers and as musicians and artists, and how we're going to move forward. So I've been thinking about that a lot lately. But yeah, that's what I got going on. So
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. It is certainly a brave new world, and I am glad that we're each here focusing on the brave rather than the other stuff. So a few questions to get started, some warm-up questions. Each of you I know to be really amazing singers, but how did you get there? Were there specific people, or was there an event that any of you can remember from younger days where you said, I want to do that? Anyone? Sam?
I can start. Yeah, so my grandmother was actually hugely influential in my love of music. We'd spend hours like her playing the piano and us singing together. and we'd go to musicals together, and we just kind of explored like the whole vastness, the whole array of, you know, the music tradition in the city of Omaha mostly. And then like I always loved to sing in school and all of that, but my first passion was musical theater, and I wanted to be, you know, doing musicals so badly, but my voice just, it never quite fit exactly right. Like it was just too big for that stage. And so deciding to like major in music, that's where I went, you know, learning classical voice, you're trained to sing opera. So that's kind of where I fell into the opera world.
Great.
I can,
Yeah.
yeah. So my first opera was, I saw it when I was 7. It was a Portland Opera production of Gounod's Faust. And it was really weird and racy and kind of experimental. And my mom didn't like it at all, but I was like fully focused in for the entire, like, I don't know, 4 hours or something. I just loved it. I thought what they were doing with their voices was amazing. I thought the storytelling was so compelling, and like to be able to sing on like a big stage like that, it was like a dream come true. I'm a performer at heart, and I've always been singing, and I started taking lessons when I was 13 because I wanted to do musical theater, but I just didn't fit in there. And I found art song, as we young singers all do, not necessarily by choice, but it became a big love of mine. And through playing piano, I discovered Schoenberg. And Schoenberg was actually some of the first art song that I sang in college. My teacher was very excited about my interests, and let me sing a lot of Schoenberg art song to start. So that was how I like got into it. Just like this sort of weird sensual mystery, I guess, is something that really hypnotized me as an artist. And I guess that's why I really like more experimental classical music now. But it's, yeah, it like classical music has always been like a love of mine. And it's just like, it's the best feeling ever to be performing on stage with people, and like connecting in that way.
Cool. Helen, any inspiration from you?
Yeah, so I have always kind of had classical music in my life. My parents are huge, like, huge fans of classical music, and I was very lucky to be exposed to it from like a really early age. Started taking piano when I was like 3, auditioned to be a Munchkin in Wizard of Oz when I was 3. I sang Happy Birthday for my audition. And then it just like, that really started like a long, like, love affair with music, right? I saw my first opera when I was 10 years old. I was living in Wichita. Wichita Grand Opera is actually like, they hire a lot of like really, really amazing performers. So I got to see Aida as my first opera, which is also a very heavy opera for like a 10-year-old to witness for the first time. But I was like, similarly like Maeve, I was just like totally entranced by it. I was like really emotional watching it. Just seeing like that, such a grand level of storytelling was like really, really exciting to me. But I didn't really come into singing classical music till I was in high school. I wanted to go to music theater, and like, I had all of the plans in line to be a musical theater actor, right? Or, but my voice just did not make sense to it. My energy did not make sense with musical theater people. That is no shade. I'm just saying I am a little bit maybe more grounded. And so then when I was like 16, I came across like art song, and I sang some arias I was really not supposed to, and now here I am. I also really wanted to leave Kansas, so that's how I happened upon PSU. Yeah.
Awesome. I love how each of you came to this from a different place, and we sort of have focused, at least us in queer opera, and then you'll probably also sort of go to a different place after this, and it's just amazing what the arts can do and how they inspire us in different directions. But let's talk about queer things for a minute. Yes, Aida and Faust are amazing, but there's not a lot of queerness in them. So I'm interested in the first time any of you saw yourself represented on the operatic stage, or any stage. We're not talking about Will and Grace or Ellen here, but
Right.
something else where you thought, oh wow, that's me up there. Who'd like to start?
I got one
Hey.
straight off the top. It was my first time seeing Ariadne auf Naxos, and I saw the composer, and it was Kate Lindsay in this like sort of like trench coat and like disheveled suit, and I was just like, oh my god, that is what I want to be. I was like, I don't know, like 13 or 14 or something, and I was like, oh wow, that looks like a butch person, like a gender non-conforming, like just like a person that I want to look like, that I feel like I should be. And like I saw the composer and Serbinetta like kiss on stage, and I freaked out because that is everything to me, and I wanted to be both of them at the same time. And it was just like I became obsessed with this idea of pants rolls from that point on, because it was my first time seeing a pants roll.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden there was this new world of like gender fuckery possible in the context of opera, which is something that I love so much. Mm-hmm. And like from then on, I was like, what are all pants rolls? Let me look up what are all the pants rolls. I need to see all of them. I need to know what this is all about.
Right.
Yeah, it was just like, it was a really exciting moment, for sure. That was like the first time, I guess.
Amazing. Helen or Sam?
I don't know. I feel like it's really hard as like a fat queer person to have seen myself in any kind of media or traditional like performance venues. So honestly, like queer opera, when Helen was there, I'm like, wow, there's like another like rad, like cool person who looks like me, who could sing, and like, wow, what a treat. But like the first time I recognized like seeing queerness in media was Billy Elliot. I think I was 10, and my parents like rented the movie from Blockbuster, and we watched it. And I just, like, I don't know why it necessarily stuck with me, but I think there was just like this joy in the film. And I realized that like queerness wasn't something that adults just chose, you know, like it was something like innate to a person and could be expressed through art. So that's kind of like my first time recognizing queerness in some kind of variety. And then, yeah, it wasn't until I met Helen that I was like, oh, wow, like there are other people like me trying to do this too.
Wow.
And it was really validating.
That's so sweet.
Helen, did you know that?
No, but I love that. And yeah, I totally feel like super similarly, like besides like navigating opera like as a queer person, navigating opera with like a non-traditional body type, as shocking as it may seem, like because like so many people we look up to, like Montserrat Caballé is like a huge woman, and Jesse Norman is like just like a larger than life human being, but like now it's like felt really like difficult to navigate that too, like having a non-traditional body type. Like what does that even mean? So yeah, I also unfortunately didn't really like, I can't think of a specific experience where I have seen myself like represented on stage in opera. Queer opera also was like the only time I've seen like other like fat queer people like doing their thing on stage. I guess like now we have like Jamie Barton, which is really exciting, you know, but yeah, I don't know what like, I consumed a lot of like queer media in general, like as a child, because I was just like, I was super fascinated by it. Like, I came across like John Waters movies when I was like in elementary school, and I was just like really, really intrigued by the characters in there. And like, I mean, I feel like a lot of people in my generation can say like, I saw Drag Race and like I was so fascinated by it, and like that was like times where I've felt like inspired by queer media, but unfortunately I haven't felt that within my own art form.
Hmm. So this sort of brings me to another question, sort of the next question on the list is about queer heroes. Are there people either in society in general or specifically working in the opera industry that you can identify as being someone who is really advancing queer visibility, that is someone that you look up to, that is doing the right work in our field? You had mentioned Jamie
Um,
Barton,
yeah,
but
definitely Jamie Barton. Like, I worship at the altar of Jamie Barton every day. But um, I don't know. I don't want to sound like sappy or something, but I feel like, I mean, you do like so much, even like even if only like on a sort of not necessarily like a huge scale, but like from how you have like created queer opera, my relationship to opera has changed, and my relationship to like myself and as a performer has changed a lot. And I mean, I feel like that's the first thing that comes to mind, is just like getting the opportunity, thanks to you, to like actually breathe in myself, in my own presentation and my own sort of sexuality. um I mean, that's like the first thing I can think of. I don't know, maybe I'm not that tapped into the opera world as it is right now, but
well,
yeah.
let me say first of all, thank you, and that is, you can't tell over Zoom, but I have a little tear in my eye. Um, but I also have to give a shout out to my amazing cohort in queer opera, Rebecca Herman,
Mhm.
who she's my stage director, and it's her amazing heart and generosity of spirit, and just she's just a fabulous person, and she has, and as much credit as you've given me, I have to give at least half of it to Rebecca, because she's done amazing work for queer opera as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank
I
you so
agree.
much, Ryan. Uh, we could talk about all these questions so much, and I don't want to skip over anyone. Um, Sam, do you have a queer hero that you can think of?
Yeah, so when I initially was like examining my own queerness and thinking about how it relates to opera and just in classical singing, like I thought, like what do non-binary like choral soloists or any kind of soloist get to wear on stage? Like I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find stuff about like how hormones have affected singers. And through my Googling, basically, I landed on a singer named Aiden Feldkamp, who they are non-binary. I think they use they, he, him pronouns. He's a composer and performer, um, is taking hormones and like went through a whole like tessitura change, and has like explicitly made it their like mission to compose operas that are about queer storytelling and that like feature trans performers. And that is so inspiring to me. I think they're like my age and living in New York and like just making it work, um, and promoting new music and building like this whole like underground society. I mean, it's kind of underground because big opera, doesn't really care so much about the little guys, but I think they're just doing amazing work out there, trying to build something new in opera that speaks to queer people and this just like all these new ideas.
You said Aiden Feldkamp.
Yeah,
Cool. I'll have to look them up for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that's interesting about the time that we're living in is, sure, some of the bigger companies have bigger budgets, but we're all on a level playing field right now. And, you know, the Met can come into your home as easily as we can come into your home on YouTube or whatever. And so it's really leveled what's possible for groups like us. So I think that's really exciting. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about the roles that you guys played in queer opera, because each of you have tackled some pretty iconic roles, non-traditionally cast. Most of them have been traditionally male. I think, Sam, you're the only one that played a traditionally female role. I think Maeve and Helen, I think we've given you all male roles for the last couple of years. I'd love to know about your experience playing these roles that you were cast in, just what it was like doing that. Helen, why don't we start with you, and then we'll hear from Maeve and then Sam.
Yeah, so it's been really like exciting to be able to play these like traditionally male roles for me. Not only because it like aligns with like, you know, what I'm discovering about myself and like my gender identity and presentation, but also just because like when I was growing up, like I was super into music theater, and like I always thought that like the men's roles were like the most interesting to me, which might say more about how they write women, you know, too. But also just like I wanted to be Mark in Rent, and like I thought that that was like the coolest thing in the world, and I thought he had like the coolest music in the show, or and I started feeling like really similarly like that about opera, and so that leads me to I got to play Don Jose like this past summer. I sang the Carmen finale with my friend Lydia O'Brien as Carmen, and that was probably one of the most like gratifying like performance experiences I've had, and I think because I got to just like be in a like form that felt really comfortable and natural to me, it helped me feel confident about myself on stage, and I didn't really like second guess how I felt like my body was being like perceived, or what I had to do to portray this certain type of like character. I just felt really really like grounded, and like I could focus on like honing in on the character instead of like I could actually perform. I wasn't thinking about like performing like femininity or performing something else that didn't come naturally to me. So it gave me like a lot of like, even though that scene is like super intense, you know, I have to kill somebody at the end of it. It's not like, that was not like easy to do, right? But it gave me like a lot of confidence to just focus on like really executing the scene instead of like feeling really self-conscious.
Yeah, it took a barrier away that you didn't have to worry about.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. Cool. Maeve, what about you?
So probably one of my favorite performance experiences that I have had was singing Rodolfo in a scene from La Boheme. And I don't know, for me at that time, it was like this period of extreme dysphoria for me. I was butch presenting, and I felt so conscious all the time of how I was being perceived, and I was afraid to be free and let go and really actually be seen by people. And I knew it was hindering my performance because I felt really internal, and I felt like I couldn't externalize like the things that I wanted to do for fear of like looking stupid. And that's like always an anxiety regardless of how you're presenting, but when you have that level of dysphoria on top of it, even the most simple of things will feel like, you know, you're making a fool of yourself no matter what you do. because your form is undesirable. And embodying like Rodolfo and being this like complex, iconic, very troubled character, and just having to go there and having to be like alive and on it all the time was really exciting, especially in that small space, because we're performing in this studio theater and everyone sees every little part of your face and what you're doing, and they can see in your eyes if you're not there. And so that space adds a level of extra challenge. But I got to be masculine on stage. I got to love a woman on stage. And that was really huge for me.
Before we move on to Sam, I want to mention, so Maeve, you played opposite a friend of yours, a straight cis woman, Savannah Panah, who was amazing as Mimi.
Yeah.
I know you can't necessarily speak for her, but what was it like embodying Rodolfo, playing opposite? So Savannah could be cast as Mimi. You most likely would not be cast as Rodolfo. I mean, you should, but you're not.
Thank you.
What was that like, being intimate with her on stage?
Yeah, so it was tough because I was afraid, because as a queer person especially, you are afraid of being predatory, and you're afraid, especially with a straight woman, of like, oh, is she gonna think I like this too much? Does she think I'm using this as an excuse to like get close to her? And I had to overcome that, but like we communicated, and like she was really nice about it, and I was like, is this good? Is this is this uncomfortable? And she was like, it's fine, just like do it. And I was like, yeah, okay, right, it's fine, it's fine. Which was great, because then I had a chance to feel like, oh, me acting on stage with someone who doesn't identify the same way I do, I'm not just being predatory, I'm just like doing the role.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Sam, what about you?
So I think playing Figaro for me was something that it was really exciting and incredibly humbling at the same time. Figaro is such this like larger than life character in the opera world, and so many people have gotten the chance to sing him, well, so many men. And I think this was the first time, at least the people that came up and talked to me, had ever seen a non-male Figaro. And they were so impressed that like a non-male person could perform this role, and that like Figaro would make sense without being a baritone. So it was really reaffirming to know that like I as a person could like infuse my identity in this iconic role and still like make these like connections with people that have had these really intimate experiences with the role, or have all these ideas about who Figaro is. So it was just really like affirming and exciting, I guess, to like subvert these ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, you had some sort of buffa roles. You had Figaro, you had the Count from the Act Two finale, which was amazing, with you and Grace. Alcindoro, which I think you might have stolen the show in Act Two of Bohème. But then you also played Dinah in Trouble in Tahiti, traditionally female role, but you played opposite Genevieve Meister, who played what's the guy's name? Sam, of course, right?
Yeah.
Sam.
It's like I can't.
So even though you were playing a traditionally female role, you were in a non-traditional relationship on stage. How was that for you?
So when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking like how much like reflection and like meditation I was doing on this idea of this life I could have led had I not like embraced my own identity and my own queerness. Like this could have been me in this like happy, like sad marriage, just not enjoying life, full of like regret. And that's kind of like what I was thinking about, and it became this like cerebral kind of game to me with like, I don't know, like it was fun because of that, because it got me in my head so much.
Right.
And like, um, and realizing that like things can, like her experience be universal to me, even as someone who wasn't a woman. Um, so that was, it was exciting in a challenge in a different way.
Yeah.
But I didn't, like, you don't want to like make it a caricature or anything. Like I wanted to be real and to feel things like she would feel and to express her experience in a way. So it was exciting to like get to do that so recently after I did come out too. So
Yeah. So each of the roles that you guys talked about, Rodolfo and Jose and Figaro and then Dinah, it was really amazing seeing how vulnerable each of you were able to be on stage, and so I appreciate that. And so moving on from that, and this may be more for Maeve and Helen, how do you go back into uh, a traditionally cast opera role? So Maeve and Helen, you were both in, Finta and Albert Herring, and um, Maeve was in Merry Wives of Windsor, post queer opera. What were those experiences like, going back into something that's more traditional?
Um, well, I don't know. So queer opera was like the first time that we got to really express ourselves and like really feel comfortable in our bodies enough for me the first time I know, and comfortable enough in my body to actually be present on stage and actually connect with people without this fear of like, am I being a woman right? Am I doing the hand movements that women do? Am I doing all these things that I'm supposed to be doing because I'm presenting a gender? And I got to feel what it was like to just be. And that is a sense memory that is so powerful, because you don't really forget that feeling. You can, I mean, at least like I was able to pull from that feeling of like, oh no, hold on, this is how it felt when I got to, you know, be with a woman on stage. This is how it felt. Now I can try and like, I don't know, like um recreate in a way the things that I was doing, the way I was breathing, the way I was like taking in my surroundings. Um, and it also just taught me that it was safe to do that. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I think from now on, like I get to take that with me. Like, no, it's okay, it's safe.
Right.
And I can be here and it's going to be great.
Amazing. Helen, what about you?
So I definitely feel like because they were such grounded like performing experiences, I definitely like also like try to bring myself back into that like frame of mind that I was in. I haven't done anything like after I did Don Jose, so I'm really interested to see, because that was such like a transformative performing experience for me. So I'm really excited to see what that will feel like. But like when I did Finta at Portland State, I felt like that role that I did is just like larger than life. Like, I mean, essentially, I always thought of her as like a drag queen, honestly. But what I took away from queer opera was really like, besides like the freedom of gender expression, was like Rebecca's directing and how she gives us so much space to like explore, and also like really like emphasizes like specificity in your character. And I think that was really helpful for me approaching a role after that experience.
Cool. Amazing. So we need to wrap up shortly, but I want to give each of you guys an opportunity for some final thoughts or some conclusions. Obviously, opera is about acting. No one has written an opera yet that has a role that is exactly like Sam Peters or exactly like Helen or Maeve. And so we all have to do something to become someone else. The goal of queer opera is trying to keep us from bypassing a big part of ourselves to get to the role. But there is still a lot of acting involved. Helen is not a murderous, you know, wildly jealous person, right? Correct?
Sure. Yeah, we're gonna go with that for like appearance's sake. Yeah.
Right. So in the end, what is the value of a program like Queer Opera? And you all have sort of alluded to this or spoken about it directly through the course of our conversations, but how is this different than acting? Yeah. I wonder if that is making sense. What's the value in queer opera's attempt to unite a person's identity with the role they play? There, I'll go back on script. So, Sam, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I think I alluded to this earlier. I think like when thinking about my first time I ever saw queer people that like look like me on stage, I think this queer opera is so important because queer people rarely get to see people that look like them on stage, let alone like portray these characters, right? So it's just so affirming, and it's an opportunity to like relax like the barriers and things that you put up, like Maeve was talking about, to like make it through. You're able to strip those down and kind of refocus and do what you want to do and be the person you want to see on stage in a way. And it's a way to like celebrate queerness because it's not artificial. It's truly authentic that you're able to bring yourself so heavily into these characters, and tell old stories in new ways.
Awesome. Helen, what about you?
Yeah, so the question, acting, right? Just want to confirm. Yeah. I think just having being able to access a part of myself that feels really, really natural that I have tried to hide away in terms of like my time as an opera performer, or just feeling like a real like lack of alignment between those two things, has just made me feel a lot more confident on stage. It doesn't feel like there is any more like there's no artifice to it, like I feel like I am bringing my natural present self into the situation rather than like my notion of who I am supposed to be when I am also doing a character on top of that.
Great. Maeve, we'll finish up with you.
Cool. So the value of queer opera to me is that it is human. This is putting our art form, basically boiling it down to its fundamentals, which is just telling human stories. I'm tired of seeing just kind of one-dimensional, like kind of meaningless performances because a director was like, do this gesture here and then do this gesture now. Like, I'm tired of that. I want to see what it was supposed to be, which is a representation of human relationships, and however that looks. And it looks different now than maybe it widely did when a lot of these operas were composed. But I think that's a huge reason why this needs to exist. We need to keep telling these human stories in a way that is really really big and really important and honest.
Awesome. And we will. That's what we're here for. So before we go, I just want to do some thank yous. First of all, to Sam, Helen, and Maeve, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. In my previous interview with Daniel Mobbs, I mentioned that my queer heroes are you guys, because it's been it's been really special and inspirational for me to see your bravery and vulnerability that I would not have had at your age. So take it from a 40-something-year-old guy that we are making progress, and you are part of it. So I just want to thank you for your time and for being here. I have to thank two very important people that helped make this happen, Dean Leroy Bynum and Bonnie Miksch from the College of the Arts at Portland State University. They help support what we are doing and have been champions of this program from the very beginning. And finally, the PSU Foundation that is integral in the coordination of all this. So thank you all for listening. Thanks again, Sam, Helen, and Maeve, and see you next time.